So Caroline, how many years did you serve for, and what or who was it that actually inspired you in the first place to join the RAF?
I ended up serving for 35 years, so a long time, but it was all flying, so that was brilliant. And actually, I was inspired to join the Air Force because I gained a pilot's license as a teenager through a flying scholarship, and that gave me the incentive. I wanted to fly. I just had that bug. I'd started gliding at the age of 15, and having got my private pilot's license, the Air Force was the logical place to go to do that flying. So that's what took me in.
So I was in the Air Force for slightly less than you, 17 years. But what inspired me is a combination of things, really. I was 13 when I really sort of started focusing on the RAF. And it was mostly down to the fact my dad was in the Air Force as a navigator like you. And in the summer holidays, I spent time on his squadron rather than, because I couldn't be left at home on my own. And I loved being part of the squadron and the family atmosphere, the sort of banter that, everyone's serious about the job they've got to do, but there was a lot of fun and friendship around that on the squadron. And they really welcomed me onto the squadron, which I was very lucky to experience that at such an early age. So it was actually that made me want to join the Air Force. But at that stage, so this was pre-1991, and they didn't let girls fly in fast jets at that point as pilots. So I was a little disappointed at that, and literally once I decided I was going to join the Air Force, it was probably another year, and then they suddenly opened it up to girls, at which point I literally said, well, that's what I'm going to do. So I was really lucky that I had the opportunity to experience what it was actually like in the Air Force. It seemed very achievable in that, well, if my dad can do it, and I know some of his friends, and they're just normal people, they're not right up here on pedestals, they're just normal people who have an amazing job. So if they can do it, then why can't I? And I went a similar route to you. I did a flying scholarship, which cemented that ambition, but also allowed me to see if I had the skills and talent to even be a pilot, because being a pilot is one of those jobs where you can't study for it at school. You use a lot of those subjects at school, but it's actually whether you have the hand-eye coordination, which is really you've either got it or you haven't, sadly. And I was lucky enough to discover that I did have it. So Caroline, what would you say were your greatest achievements in the Royal Air Force?
My greatest achievement was being myself, being open and being allowed to be myself and doing the job that I wanted to do. I'm a transgender woman, and so when I joined the Air Force, the military didn't allow LGBT plus people to join. There was a ban in place, so I had to hide who I was, and it was really, really difficult because I was doing those amazing jobs with the Phantom and the Merlin and the Wessex, but I wasn't able to be me. And eventually that got too much, and I decided that I wanted to stand up for myself and tell everybody that who I was. I'd known this from childhood, so it was something that I'd had to hide for a long time. And I presented a case to the Air Force back in 1999 when the ban was still in place for me to remain in service, and there was lots of discussions, and at the end of the day they decided I could. So it was quite a challenge from then on, but I saw the Air Force and the other services all transform from this place that wasn't accepting of LGBT people to becoming a place which is really proud of them and openly inclusive. And I was part of that. I was leading that. So that was a really amazing achievement to watch that transformation, not just within the Air Force, but within myself, and being able to just be Caroline, a female navigator in the Air Force, and just crack on and do my job. That was a great achievement.
I think it was incredibly brave of you, and a lot of people would actually have had gone through the same process and felt like they wanted to be able to be themselves, so they would have left so that they could be themselves. Whereas actually you chose to stay and do the right thing, not just by yourself, but by actually others. And that's an incredibly brave thing to do, because instead of just thinking about yourself, actually to go ahead and go through the formality of putting a paper to present the case. And I know that in the military, things don't change very quickly. So, that paper needed to be absolutely spot on. You weren't going to get multiple chances to do this. You really needed to get it right, first of all. So to have been brave enough to, I think, challenge the organisation, it's a big organisation, to challenge it and to be successful in doing it is incredible, absolutely incredible. amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was amazing, but the thing that made it amazing was the people around you, and the people around me were supportive, and you can't do those kinds of things on your own. And the military just had all these amazing, it has these amazing people, as you know, and it's that support that helps. So I always credit them as well. So Kirsty, what kind of exciting opportunities did you have throughout your Air Force career?
I was really lucky. I think probably 3 key opportunities I had when I was in the Air Force. So the first one was travel. So when I was on the front line and on the Red Arrows, I travelled around the world. And it wasn't just for very quick overnight stops and then fly on. I got to stay. For example, I did one exercise. I went to 2 exercises back to back in the States. So I spent 6 weeks in the States, and it meant that I did have, days off, and I had the odd weekend off, which allowed me to explore the area that I was in. So it's great being in new countries and actually getting to explore them. On a slightly more kind of day-to-day level, I'm quite a sporty person, and the opportunities in the Air Force to do sport are huge. I really love my skiing, and I had the opportunity to fly at the RAF ski at the RAF Ski Championship probably about 3 or 4 times. That was amazing. And I also took the opportunity to do something I'd never done before, which was a sailing course, which I probably would never have done if it wasn't sort of easily available to me through the Air Force.
That sounds fabulous. Like you, some of the most exciting opportunities were for travel, but also the opportunity to fly some absolutely amazing aeroplanes. They were quite exciting. But when I qualified as a tactics instructor, I became an instructor. So I used to teach the tactics instructors. And in my last 2 years of service, we started teaching Europeans. And after I left the Air Force, I got contracted back to continue teaching European helicopter crews tactics on how to defend themselves against fighters and ground radars and all that kind of stuff. And for me, that was an exciting opportunity to work with European nations and see and just enjoy their cultures and learn a bit about their histories and see what they flew in their air forces, and that was just a really exciting opportunity to do that. And I made lots of really good friends throughout European military air forces through doing that.
So Caroline, I hope you don't mind me mentioning that back in 1999 you were the very first gender transition female in the RAF to serve in operations, and you've since spent the last 21 years championing diversity in the workplace, and have since set up a charity, I know, which is called Fighting with Pride. All of which would have no doubt have taken a huge amount of moral courage, determination and drive, which makes you such an inspirational woman. So knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to other individuals who are facing perhaps a similar journey? And how do you feel that they would be accepted nowadays in the Air Force compared to maybe how you were?
Everybody's journey is individual, so my journey will be different to anybody else who is going through similar kind of life challenges. So really it's all about being true to yourself and believing in yourself. And if you've got a dream or an ambition, is to have a go at it, because you'll never ever know if that won't open up. So I never knew I'd be able to fly airplanes, and I went for it and I found out I could. And I never knew I'd be able to serve in the Air Force as a transgender woman, but I went for it and I found out that I could. So it's all about believing in yourself, but also I would say it's about using the help that's around you. It's very, very difficult to find, make that first move to see if somebody is open and accepting and so on. But you get a feeling for it, you get an idea of who's going to be a friend in need. And so use your friends and your family and your support circle, have a really great support circle. But would if I was trying to join the Air Force now as a trans youngster, yes, I would absolutely go for it. The Air Force, the Army and the Navy are all openly inclusive, they have inclusive policies, but it's not just about that, it's about the people you're working with and everybody. As long as you're able to do your job, then it doesn't matter about that part of your background and things. And the opportunities to do so many different things, so many different trades in the Air Force, that I would definitely go for it these days. Yeah, absolutely. Kirsty, you were the first female Red Arrows pilot in the Royal Air Force, flying the flag for the UK and displaying in high pressure environments all over the world, which must have been an absolutely, truly amazing experience. And you've taken that into civilian life now, and you're a pilot with a civilian formation display team, aerobatics team, and known as the Blades. And I think it's safe to say that you've led a really, truly inspirational life so far, and you're still quite young, so lots more to do. So what advice would you give to females who may also want to get into flying within the RAF?
So I've been really lucky with the job I managed to get, or the fact I was accepted into the Red Arrows. But I have to say, and I always try and tell as many people this as possible, when I was in the Air Force, it was really very much about what I could do, and was I doing it to the right standard. It wasn't about me being a female at all. And I really believe when I applied to the Red Arrows, I wasn't applying to be the first female Red Arrows pilot at all. I was applying to be one of 2 people who were hoping to join the Red Arrows that year. And that's how the Red Arrows saw it as well. There was obviously complications about the fact I was going to be the first female. And I thought I'd addressed it when I approached it, and when I was successful in getting in. I knew that there'd be quite a bit of noise about it in the media initially, but I really felt like people would get used to it quickly. And, you know, the first couple of air shows, everyone would be very excited, but then people would be almost bored of it, and they would realise that actually when you look up in the sky and you see 9 red aeroplanes, it's impossible to tell which one is me. You know, the worst one in the formation isn't me, the best one in the formation isn't me. It's, you know, you just can't tell. I think I was, even though I'd prepared myself, I think I was still slightly naive by the perception from the general public. And I think this is interesting because, of course, young girls at the minute are in the general public, if that makes sense, potentially thinking, or maybe thinking, they can't join the military because it just seems too out there or too difficult, or not for them. It's a male job. And weirdly, I found once I was inside the Air Force, it was almost more accepted than outside. And I've really noticed that since I left the RAF, and I became a pilot in the Blades aerobatics team. So I'm a full-time professional pilot, and essentially we try and offer that thing that everybody wants to do is you know, fly with the Red Arrows. Well, you can't do that, but you can fly with ex-Red Arrow pilots in a different type of aeroplane, and we also do some really crazy aerobatics, which is really good fun. Within the Blades, I feel like I'm treated completely normally. I don't notice that I'm a female at all in that respect. It's all about my piloting skills and how I'm dealing with customers, that kind of stuff. And it's when we have customers, and I always hear this, oh, there's the female pilot, there's the girl pilot. So I obviously, you know, there's still a general perception, I think, that females shouldn't do this, but weirdly, that's not from actually within the organisation or the people who are actually doing it. So it's quite an interesting aspect to that. So to any young girl who is thinking of doing something which is just a little bit out of the norm in her current surroundings, so it doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're 10 or 18, if your sort of support group and peer group think what you're doing is a bit unusual, I can guarantee that when you get to where you want to be, you'll be surrounded by other like-minded people, and you won't feel like you stand out so much anymore.
So Kirsty, what advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you know now?
There's so many things I think I've learned over my career. It's tricky to pick probably just one. I think probably the key one I would want to give myself is a very positive one, which is take every opportunity that comes along. Don't be afraid to go and do something that has seemingly no link maybe to what you're aiming to do. So, for example, at university and at school, at sort of A-level age, I was very, very focused on joining the Air Force, and almost to the detriment of a few other things. Luckily, I was into sport, so I kept doing lots of bits and pieces like that. But unless I could see a clear linkage to how it would help me or support me, motivate me, whatever, to get into the Air Force, then I maybe wasn't so interested. And I think I look back and think that's what you need to do is be a bit more broad-minded, take any opportunity. You just never know where some of these opportunities come to, and things that I've said yes to is a bit of a I'm not sure whether, oh well, I'll say yes to that, and then I've met someone and you know, something's come from it and it's been brilliant, so another opportunity has arisen. So take every opportunity you can and say yes to as many.
I would give very much the same advice, really, is to push yourself. Don't pull yourself back. Don't hold yourself back, because we're all bad at doing that. If you see something that you want to do, go for it. And if you don't get there, if you don't achieve that aim, then you'll find some amazing other things to do perhaps on the way, but you'll learn so much about yourself. I went for things that weren't successful. I went for pilot training. I wasn't successful there, but I ended up being a navigator, and that was just the most amazing job in the world, and I wouldn't swap that now at all. But it wasn't something that I would have necessarily chosen to do in the first place. So definitely go for what you want to do, but you might find something better on the way. So push yourself hard, and see where that goes. And as you said, Kirsty, take every opportunity, because it's a little bit too late thinking a year later, darn it, I wish I'd gone for that, or I wish I'd done this. And do it.